Hello everyone, it's really a pleasure to be here. Always nice to be in Budapest, and especially on this occasion in this beautiful building, on actually taking part in such an inspiring conference, Museum Digit. It's really, I think I can speak on behalf of all and say that this is a worthwhile experience. What I will talk about today is, of course, fully embedded in the DIAL project. The project, as you can see here, Virtual Archaeological Landscapes of the Danube region. And in a way, I'm perhaps going to give you a counterpoint of sorts, in a way, because I'm not really going to discuss virtual reality or digitization or digitalization very much, apart from saying that the whole project that we are also a proud part of is dedicated to precisely that facet of dealing with cultural heritage. Okay, so in discussions with the organizer of this industry forum, I had been given the opportunity to present a case on archaeology as a tourism resource. And within that, which is a rather broad subject, I'm going to discuss the cultural root perspective. There is, of course, a rationale for that, because apart from promoting the Danube's archaeological landscapes Interreg Danube Transnational Program project, we're also promoting the Iron Age Danube route. And let me just remind you that at the beginning of today's event, Dr. Erzsébet Jerem presented one of the very freshest initiatives, and that's the publication of our Iron Age Danube route magazine. You can see it, you can have your copy in either Hungarian or Croatian. Okay, so just quickly, just a short reminder that everything that I'm going to say is actually just has at its backdrop the virtual reality and the archaeological landscape. So without further ado, I'm discussing the other side of that. So what I will be focusing on today is basically a sustainable cultural tourism approach when it comes to archaeological heritage management. I will be talking a bit about visitor economy, that is how this relates to the way things are done on this interface between tourism and cultural heritage. And a specific topic will be the cultural roots, as I said, one of the facets. We end up with the promotion and reminder that the Iron Age Danube route actually stands for that very fact. One of the baselines for what we do is the firm belief that archaeology and tourism, when you look at them at the same time, are in a way natural allies. I would need an hour or two to discuss this assertion, because reality, more often than not, actually proves that this ostensible relationship and cooperation is laden with difficulties. But more about that either later or on some other time. What do we mean by sustainable cultural tourism approach? But first, also, let me use a few of the definitions or the explanations or descriptions of what we consider under that. So, sustainable cultural tourism basically relates to the idea that cultural tourism is a type of activity where the essential motivation is to learn, to visit and experience the tangible and intangible heritage or cultural attractions, if you will, in a tourism destination. In this definition will also help me to echo, in a way, something that has been said repeatedly today, starting with I think, General Director, who is all about enticing, actually using the virtualization, using digitization to basically attract and to entice people into coming to museums. We're all about that too. It's just in this way we're rather enticing them to visit archaeological sites and landscapes, using, among other tools, also the virtual reality, augmented reality, and so on and so forth. Cultural tourism, of course, if you want to delve a bit deeper, we more or less in the business of archaeological tourism, which is, of course, a form of heritage tourism in which this motivation relates primarily to archaeology instead of other things. When I said that within that, recently or in recent decades, one of the very, very good, I would say, methodological or networking tools that has been developed relates to cultural roots. I will not read the definition. That's a definition promoted by the Council of Europe through its programs of cultural roots. You may probably know that this whole idea was introduced way back in 1987, I think, with the first route that was promoted was the pilgrimage ways of St. James of Compostela. And to this day there has been 45 certified routes. I will mention that again towards the end. When we're talking about, again, using either virtual reality or other tools to go out to visit the sites, not only from your chairs or armchairs or from the security of your homes, but really going out there and experiencing it for yourselves. It's of course helpful to remember how routes are defined also by other players, including the ICOMOS, which some time ago, in its Charter on Cultural Routes, defined it in its own idiosyncratic way, and underscoring that a cultural route cannot be looked at without basic and direct relation to its setting. It's an inseparable part of that. So another thing that we are also employing in dealing and working with that, it's in its sustainable tourism, cultural tourism approach, looks at the benefits to the host community. So we're looking at the setting where it all takes place and how the relationship within the stakeholders in cultural tourism with the heritage itself plays out. So one thing that is necessary to underscore is, of course, that this is an arena of different both types of knowledge, bodies of knowledge, but as well as different interests or stakes that all the stakeholders have in that. So again, another charter by the ICOMOS, in this case the International Cultural Tourism Charter, warns or advises that what you need to do in order to create a valuable and worthwhile platform for the management of cultural heritage is it really takes into consideration this ideas, knowledge, and interests of all the parties. You can. I'm not going to read who these are, of course. Another thing is, again, let me remind you that we're more discussing tourism than anything else here. It's the visitor economy of that, which again, what tourism does, it can bring benefits. It has its detrimental sides, but in a sustainable cultural tourism approach, you do look at, through the lens of visitor economy, to any direct, indirect, and induced economic activity that results from the interactions of visitors with their destinations. And what do we mean by that? When it comes to direct economic benefits or effects, think retail, think catering, tourism services, and so on. The indirect, the effects of consumption relate to everything and totality of costs that happen in the course of this formation of tourism services. I'm rushing in a way here, but this is just to give you a general idea of what it entails. There's also the sometimes the most elusive, but nevertheless very important type of effect. These are induced effects of consumption. So another thing that happens if you or us as tourists arrive at a destination or visit a site, what happens to the host community is is labeled induced effects. Okay, briefly back to the idea of cultural roots. I've mentioned that when you're in a business of cultural roots, there are, this can be locally made, local endeavors, such as, I don't know, wine roots or parts, cultural parts, and so on and so forth. This can be regional or national. In a way, the highest or the broadest type, which also has the greatest visibility in international terms, is the program of the cultural roots of the Council of Europe. And think of it as a cultural, educational, heritage and tourism cooperation project that really, if you remember the types of stakeholders that I've mentioned or shown on some of the slides, it's really a cultural route experience shows one of the best methods in which such stakeholders can network in order to produce various types of benefits, not only for the host community, but eventually also to the heritage itself, as well as to tourism and end users, which in a way, mutatis mutandis, all of us are in many ways. So cultural roots of the Council of Europe, again, there is an ulterior motive why I'm constantly discussing that, and that's the fact that of the 45 roots that have received this label or certificate of the Council of Europe, there are only several that deal with archaeology. I'm going to list them briefly here. You may have heard of the Phoenician route. You may have heard of the European routes of the megalithic. The association of megalithic routes. Then another route that looks at very, very old periods, prehistory. This is a Pratt Carp, or the cultural route of prehistoric rock art trails. You may have also heard of other routes, but in a way they have less to do with archaeology. But one of the newest routes that has received the certificate is the one that we are also actually members of and promoting also here, and through projects such as the Danube's archaeological e-landscapes, is the Iron Age Danube route. So what it does, it's employing a number of ways, a number of methods. It's basically is not using any of these methods like digitization, virtualization, as a means to, as an end in itself, but as a means to an end. To do what? That is to promote, to preserve, to research, and to develop, in a sustainable way, of course, the Iron Age landscapes of, well, the Danube region and ultimately also of Europe. Because, like Matthias said previously, this is another one of those Europe-wide phenomena. It does it by associating the landscapes with the body of both tangible and intangible finds and heritage that you can see in the museums. And again, not to lose much time here, we are within this project and this route, we have fully embraced and are developing and are happy to develop, because we see that there is a future in that, and a future that our work is also becoming increasingly indivisible from, in the virtual reality, the digitization and development through the new initiatives and innovations of the kind that we have seen here today and will continue to see in tomorrow. So to end again, the route, and this is of course also not just a promotion but an invitation to follow us or to join with our initiatives, is we seek to connect and to promote the joint, the common Iron Age heritage of Europe, but not only the one that we show in the museums, such as this magnificent museum in this magnificent building, but also on the Iron Age sites throughout the Danube region. The very last slide is, again, a reminder, the Iron Age Danube Route magazine. Don't forget to either browse through it or to find your copy outside there. I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and happy to be here. Thank you.